Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Regina and I have a double page scrapbook layout to share with you today. I am going to use the Unbounded Beauty paper collection from Stampin Up. This paper collection is still available on their website. The colors of this collection are absolutely beautiful. It has some stunning floral papers, but if you want something a bit more muted, it also has these beautiful watercolor papers. And today my project, I'm going to be scrapbooking these photos. We recently went to visit my daughter in Oklahoma and we came across this little hidden gem called Medicine Park. It was a cute little town just kind of tucked back in a little mountain. It's a little touristy town. It had lots of restaurants and roadside foods, live music. It was just a really neat little place, and it's built along this little river here. And you can see on out here is the little street that goes through town, but they have this river walk that goes all the way down along the river. So we was walking down along it one night. They have the bridge that crosses with these beautiful pink flowers. It was getting close to sunset, so they had turned the lamps on, the little roadside lamps going out through there. And when you get to the end of the river walk, you have this little dam at the end. And it was just gorgeous. And then you can climb the stairs back up to the road. And as you come down, they have all kinds of little places to stop and take photos. And it was just a very neat little place. So let's get this moved off and we'll get started. All right, we're going to get started on a white base. Let me pull my photos back in and we'll kind of lay them out and see where we're headed. I was going to put this one, I want to put the little town sign on this side. So since this says Medicine Park and this says Medicine Park, I decided to put them on opposite pages so they won't conflict with each other and kind of fight against each other. Then we're just going to lay the pictures out, kind of try to get a good variety, something like this. It's a grid style pattern. These could be 4x6s if you wanted to just use all 4x6s, or this is a great way to, if you have more photos, you can put two 3x4s into a 4x6 spot and it won't take up any more of your space than you already have going. All right, for our papers, I think I'm looking at maybe flanking the sides with this pink. I'm hoping it's going to draw the pink out of these flowers. I think I have another piece here for the other side. We're just going to run those down each side. And then I'm thinking this to go just inside. And we probably need something to separate these two right here. Let me take a peek in my stash and see what All right, I found this pink glitter paper. That'd be a good transition to go from one paper to the other. That'll give it a good definition in between there and give it a little bit of bling. I went ahead while I was off camera and cut down my papers to go behind my pictures. I'm really liking this setup. So let's move on to our pictures. I need to find a color that can matte in our pictures. And I was thinking of pulling in something to go across behind. And I found this paper, and it also has, this color is called Summer Splash. So let me go ahead and find a piece of Summer Splash, and I think that's what we're going to go ahead and use to back our photos, to matte our photos. We'll matte those with that Summer Splash, and then let's run a piece of this. I'm going to run a strip behind the photos, just something to anchor the photos so that they're not hanging out in space. All right, I've matted my photos with a white border, and then I've cut a border out of Summer Splash for each photo. That white border will just give it a little definition off of this, and then the Summer Splash will pop it off of that white background. We'll just get a matte put on each one of these photos. Then I think that's going to tie in very nicely. I just cut one for this one over here. We're going to put two pictures on that one. I think this is going to help this paper tie in nicely that we want to run across behind those pictures, because now that Summer Splash mat is going to pull out the Summer Splash in this photo and just give us a nice little background that we're going to run across. So let's cut that down right quick. I believe we're going to do about a 2.5 inch strip. So we'll just put it in our trimmer, 2.5 inches. I'm going to cut one. I'm going to cut two, one for each side. I'm not sure we're going to run it the whole 12 inches across, but we can put it on there and then see how it looks the best. Let's get this trimmer out of the way. And then we're going to run this right behind these photos right here. And this will just give these almost a little shelf, if you can think of it that way, for these photos to rest on. And then when we start embellishing, it'll give us a good spot to help hold our embellishments. If we run it all the way to the edge, that's what it would look like right there. I'm thinking though we're going to go ahead and push it in and just butt it up next to this right here, because these photos should stay inside that glittery edge. So I believe if we go ahead and push that in, just like that right there. And I think that's looking great. So let me go ahead and get all of this stuck down, and I'll be back in just a moment. All right, we have all our photos adhered down, and I've gone ahead off camera and I have cut an assortment of different flowers for our embellishments. For the flowers, I've used the Pretty Florals Stampin' Die set. This is one of the newer sets from Stampin' Up. But you can see it has all the little stamps here, and then the die cuts will cut out the stamped images, or some like these. I use this one to cut this. These are standalone dies, and they will cut the images, and then you can just layer them together, and it makes these different florals that you see here. I've also used this die and this die to cut out the leaves and the sprigs. This die here for the leaves. But I'll have this linked below. All right, so now we're going to build our embellishment clusters. And if you'll notice, for the base, for both pieces, I cut out of Darling Duckling. And then for this piece in the center, I took crushed curry and just ink blended over it. I'll show you how I did that here in just a second, but that gives it kind of a two-tone look. I did pick yellow. I was hoping to brighten it up just a little bit. All these pinks were kind of dark, so I'm hoping the yellow, we have the yellow light on the pathway here that's lit up. We have a little yellow scuff on the chair. And then you can see one more little yellow light, sidewalk light there. So I'm hoping that by using these yellow florals that it'll kind of pull those out and just brighten it up just a little bit. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to start on this upper corner here. This will be our main embellishment cluster. I think our title will go here. And then I'll put a small cluster here and a small cluster here. So let's start on this one. Usually the one on the left, in your bigger space, you'll make your a bigger cluster to go in that spot. So let's see what we can come up with here. And you can just keep layering and moving around your sprigs and your leaves. Just keep moving them around until you get them in a position that you really like, that makes it look really uniform around the page. And that makes it stand out a little bit. Let's get some leaves in here. A couple leaves here. And let's see, maybe one more sprig here. All right, let's put a little bit down here. Before we go any further, let me show you how I made these centers darker than the other part so that they would stand out. I just get a piece of scratch paper. You can see this is just where I've been cutting things out on my Cricut. I always save the paper around it. You can stamp on it to make little banners. You can always use it for scratch like this to ink up on. But when you ink on your flowers, you always want to start off on the paper. The first place you put your brush is going to be the harshest color. Now I do want these just a little bit darker than just a small blend, so I'm going to go ahead and push down fairly, give it quite a bit of ink because I want that to stand off of that flower when you lay it on top. And you can see the difference here. This one has no ink and this one has inked up with crushed curry. So let's go ahead and ink this one right quick. Just tap off the edge and then start from one side and work in. Like I say, you want this whole one thing to stand out more, so we're going to go ahead and ink across the whole thing fairly heavily so that it'll stand out on that paper. And then when I do these small ones, this part was a separate piece, so I inked it up, and you'll notice I did ink around the edge of the flowers on this one. Just gave the tips a little bit of ink so that they'll stand off the page a little more. And on these you don't want much ink, so you'll wipe your brush off quite a bit and then just come around the edges, just hitting the edges all the way around, and then I'll give them just a little definition around the edges of the flowers here. All right, get that out of the way. And we're gonna glue these down. Doesn't take much glue to hold them down. So we'll just glue those right in the center here. Little glue on the other. Right in the center. And then we'll keep using these. We're going to make another cluster right down here. This one we won't make quite as big. I'm just going to use a couple of the flowers and maybe a sprig. We can let the leaves kind of stick out on this side. All right. Let's go ahead and go with one more sprig right in there. All right. I'm going to take one of these sprigs here. And you'll note that I'm going behind the pictures. So when you glue your pictures down, when you tack them down, make sure you put your sticky glue kind of away from the edges. That way it gives you space to slide in your embellishments after you get your pictures. So we're going to slide another little leaf in here. All right, liking those. We've got a couple sprigs left here. So maybe we'll do a leaf over here. And let's see if we can use some more sprigs up here. We've got one more leaf left. I'm going to move these sprigs together. I'm going to kind of slide it in right here. It kind of makes an L shape around the photo there. Go ahead and move one of these up here. Trying to get those sprigs scattered around so that it looks even and uniform all the way around the photo. All right, I think that looks good, so we'll get those glued down. But for my title, I want to use a stamp set that we got a little while back. It's this one right here. It's called Documenting the Day. It has this great big stamp here. And I think it's going to fit very nice in that spot right there. So we're going to put day. And this was a wonderful day. So we're going to use What a Wonderful. We'll stamp that out and put it here. I'm just going to dry fit these stamps just to kind of see where it needs to go. Now you can stamp directly on your paper, or if that makes you really nervous, you can always stamp it on some extra scrap paper and then cut it out, which is probably what I'll do on this big one, just to make sure we get good impressions on that. I also have this little heart. I don't know. I may stamp some hearts on there. We'll see. We'll see at the end on that. Let's hold on to that for now. Let's go ahead and get our day stamped out, and then we'll get it put down onto the sheet. All right, I've got my stamp all loaded onto my block, and I've decided to stamp the word day in Melon Mambo. I did practice once already just to kind of get the stamp good and inked up. So we'll just ink it up one more time. You'll notice the ink I got right here. We're going to wipe that off. You can tell by my fingers that I'm not very good with the ink pads, but then we're going to stamp right onto this paper. We'll mash it down good so we can get a good impression. Let that ink settle in there and soak into that cardstock. Then we'll pick it straight up, and there's our word day. There's our word day. And we're going to stamp What a Wonderful right there and hope that we don't mess it up. All right, I'm going to use early espresso for the What a Wonderful. So I'm going to put this, oops, I'm going to put this here, and we're going to stamp off once just to see it, make sure that our stamp is working good. And that looks great. These stamp pads are very juicy, so you do not have to stamp. You do not have to push very hard for it to be stamped up. I'll do one more time. Okay. I think it's looking good, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move this little piece of spongy paper up underneath. Gives it just a little cushion so that stamp will soak down onto that paper. Get all this extra off. All right, here we go. We're going to put it right here. Give it just a few seconds here to soak in. And perfect. I think it's just a hair crooked, but I can live with that. I think it looks great. All right, so let's move this out of the way. We'll clean our stamp off. Get that put away. Now, just for a couple finishing touches, I have some of the, this is the 2024 to 2026 in color resin dots. And I believe we are going to use this one right here. This is going to be the Petunia Pop. And we'll put just a few around our title. I usually do put these in odd numbers. Odd numbers just will draw your eye around Let's go ahead and put a couple around the flower arrangements here. A couple by each embellishment cluster just to finish them off and give it just a little wow. All right, I think we are done. We'll hold that a little closer. There's those beautiful resin dots. They just really make everything pop. There's the second page. I will do my journaling before I put it in my album, probably here. This is a nice big spot here to do some journaling, maybe put a card or a tag, and I believe that's it. Be sure to like my video if you enjoyed, and hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified anytime that I post new videos. I'd love to have you back. Have a great day.